On the day I married Alice, her so-called Prince Charming happened to be getting married in the church next door. Right when we were about to exchange rings, that Prince Charming burst into our wedding, crying. He shouted that the woman he truly loved was Alice, that he didn't want to marry the woman who was terminally ill. And just like that, Alice shook off my hand and ran away with him. I lost all dignity. My mother was so furious she fell ill and had to be hospitalized. Later, I exchanged a glance with that terminally ill bride. "Do you want to switch grooms too?" I asked. 3 years later, Alice appeared in front of me again, tears streaming down her face, saying she regretted everything, but I had a child in each arm. Twins, a boy and a girl. "Excuse me," I said calmly. "I need to go pick up my wife from work." Chapter 1. When I lifted Daisy and Pilar out of the car, I turned around and froze. Wasn't that Alice, my ex-fiancée, the woman who dumped me at our wedding 3 years ago to elope with her Prince Charming? Holding a child in each arm, I greeted her politely. "Excuse me, I'm in a hurry." Alice's face darkened instantly. Instead of stepping aside, she blocked my way and shrieked, "Whose children are these?" I kicked the car door shut, not intending to reply, but Pilar, hugging my neck, asked innocently, "Daddy, why is this lady so mean?" Alice's expression grew uglier. "Why is she calling you Daddy?" she demanded furiously. "I've only been gone for 3 years, how could you have children this big already? Did you have them with someone else after I left?" I answered calmly, "Of course. What? Did you expect me to stay pure and faithful for you forever?" Chapter 2. Alice and I had been childhood sweethearts. Our families were well matched, and we had been engaged since we were little, but I'd always known she had someone else in her heart. I once suggested breaking off the engagement, but she refused. She said she did love me and wanted to marry me. I believed her, or tried to, until that wedding day, when her Prince Charming knelt before her, crying so hard she lost her mind. She called off the wedding on the spot, still in her gown, and ran off with him. It was a public humiliation. My reputation was ruined, and my parents were disgraced. People who'd always envied me started mocking me openly, calling me a backup plan and a simp. My mother was so angered she fell ill and had to be hospitalized. I hated Alice for a long time after that. Never did I expect that, 3 years later, she'd appear in front of me again. She hadn't expected the polite gentleman she once knew to speak so sharply, either. For a moment, she was stunned. I tried to walk away with my twins, but she grabbed my arm. "Kevin, can we talk?" she pleaded. Just as I was about to refuse, my phone buzzed. "It's Mama's call," Daisy said quickly, pulling my phone from my pocket and hitting speaker. Then a calm, melodious voice came through the speaker, my wife's voice. "Darling, why aren't you home yet?" Chapter 3. Before coming, I had already told my wife, Selena, that I would bring the kids to pick her up tonight. Luckily, her phone call came at just the right time. It saved me from an awkward situation. That night, before bed, I read a story to our twins. Pilar blinked her big innocent eyes and asked, "Daddy, does that weird lady like you?" Before I could answer, Daisy piped up, "Of course she does. Daddy's so handsome." I could only smile awkwardly and told them not to mention anything about today to Mommy. For 3 years, Selena and I had lived peacefully and happily. I didn't want any misunderstandings or unnecessary drama. After putting the 2 little troublemakers to sleep, I returned to our bedroom. Selena was already lying on the bed, her back to me. I turned off the main light and had just lain down beside her when she suddenly rolled over and pinned me down. "Kevin," she said with a teasing glint in her eyes, "I didn't know you were so popular. Can't even walk down the street without getting hit on by beautiful women. How did you know about that?" I was stunned. She pinched my face playfully and snorted. "Your 2 little traitors told me, before they even walked through the door." "Those little traitors," I muttered. Selena's almond-shaped eyes widened. "Oh, you sound almost regretful." I sighed. It was Alice. Since she already knew, I decided not to hide it. Selena's tone turned sour with jealousy. "The woman who threw you away back then. I bet she regrets it now." She pinched my face harder. "Kevin, if I ever find out you're tangled up with her again, you are dead." In the soft glow of the lamp, Selena looked irresistibly beautiful. Desire surged within me. I wrapped my arms around her waist and pressed her down beneath me. "My heart only belongs to you," I whispered. "How could I ever get entangled with another woman?" That night, I proved those words to her with both words and actions. With such warmth and softness in my arms, if I were still thinking about the woman who betrayed me, I'd truly be a fool. Unfortunately, while I wanted nothing to do with that toxic ex, she seemed determined to come back into my life. Chapter 4. Alice had been trying to contact me several times, asking to meet, but I ignored her every time. In the end, she had no choice but to ask our old class monitor to organize a so-called class reunion, just to lure me out. When the monitor called, I had just dropped Daisy and Pilar off at kindergarten. It had been a while since I'd seen my old classmates, and the reunion happened to be held at one of my family's hotels, so I agreed to go. Since it was just friends gathering, I didn't bother dressing up, a t-shirt and shorts were enough, but the moment I stepped into the private room, I froze. Alice was there, and so was her Prince Charming, Samuel. Oh, right, they were my college classmates too. Had I known they'd be there, I might have at least made myself look a bit more presentable. I casually pulled out a chair and sat down, but before I could settle in, Samuel's mocking voice filled the air. Well, if it isn't Kevin, what's with the cheap outfit? Didn't your family have money? That fake, condescending tone of his was exactly as I remembered. I didn't bother replying. He'd always been like this. I never understood what Alice saw in him. Alice and I had attended the same school since childhood. In college, she majored in Chinese literature, while I studied business management. I thought that once we both graduated, we'd naturally get married, just as our families had planned. But then Samuel appeared out of nowhere. He was also in the Chinese department, same class as Alice. He had a decent face, knew how to charm girls, and loved quoting classical poetry, the kind of thing that easily won hearts in a department full of women and short on men. He was the rare type everyone noticed, but he never accepted anyone's confession or dated anyone officially. He just toyed with their feelings, never saying yes, never saying no, eating from one bowl while staring at another. A total player. Rumor even had it he once got a girl pregnant, though no one knew if it was true. I always thought Alice, with her pride, would stay far away from a man like that. But no, she secretly adored him for years, treating him as her own Prince Charming. On the day of our wedding, Samuel burst into the ceremony, crying that he'd finally realized the truth, that he loved Alice, not his terminally ill fiancée. We were just about to exchange rings. I gripped Alice's hand tightly and whispered, "Everyone's here, both our families, all our friends. For the sake of everyone's dignity, whatever you need to say, wait until the ceremony is over." But Alice, spoiled and willful as ever, tore off the ring. "I'm sorry," she said coldly. "I can't marry you. The one I love is Samuel." Then she threw away my hand, grabbed Samuel's arm, and left, still wearing her pure white wedding gown. That image, her walking out of our wedding hall hand in hand with another man, is one I will never forget. Not because of longing, but because of humiliation. I, one of the most distinguished heirs in City A, was abandoned at my own wedding by the girl I'd grown up with. That kind of disgrace is something a man never forgets. Chapter 5. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Alice deliberately patted Samuel's arm and said, "Samuel, stop it. Don't be so harsh. Kevin's actually quite pitiful. I heard his family kicked him out, and he doesn't even have a job now. It's no wonder he's dressed so poorly. We shouldn't make fun of him." I blinked, momentarily confused. Where did she even get that story? Then I remembered. After the disaster at our wedding, my mother was so furious she suffered a heart attack and had to be hospitalized. My father, enraged and humiliated, kicked me out of the house, told me to get lost, reflect on my life, and not show my face again. He even fired me from the family company, saying I had to toughen up on my own, and that I shouldn't dream of inheriting the business unless I made something of myself. At that time, I really was down and out. "Oh, so that's how it was," Samuel said with a smug little smirk. He picked up a bottle of expensive red wine from the table, uncorked it, and poured himself a glass, letting the fragrance fill the room. "This is a special bottle I had a friend bring back from a winery in Australia," he said, swirling the glass. "Excellent stuff. Everyone should try some." Then he turned deliberately toward me. "Kevin, you too. I bet it's been years since you've tasted wine this good." "Ah." Some people, when you ignore them, they insist on throwing themselves in your face begging for a slap. I turned to the waiter and murmured a few words. He nodded quickly and slipped out of the room. This hotel, after all, was mine. Well, to be precise, it was a gift from my wife, Selena. Back then, during the chaotic wedding day, there had been another ceremony taking place in the next ballroom, Selena's. Her groom was supposed to be Samuel. He had chased Selena obsessively for years, and the two had finally reached their wedding day. But Selena had always suspected that Samuel only wanted her for her money. So before the wedding, she told him she was terminally ill and wouldn't live long. She said she'd left only a small part of her family fortune to her parents for retirement, and donated the rest. Samuel panicked instantly, got cold feet and fled the ceremony. And where did he run? Straight into my wedding, crying and making a dramatic scene, confessing his love to Alice and dragging her away. After they left, I ran into Selena, still in her wedding dress, outside the banquet hall. For some reason, I looked her in the eye and asked, "Would you like to switch grooms?" And just like that, Selena and I had a flash marriage. We've been happy ever since. Not long after, she gave birth to our twins. When she heard that my father had kicked me out, she handed this hotel over to me to manage. She said it was her dowry, and that if I ran it into the ground, she'd personally kick me next. Fortunately, I had a degree in business management. Within just 3 years, not only did the hotel turn a profit, I even opened several branches. Selena was very pleased. So now, sitting here in my own hotel, listening to some arrogant fool trying to show off, well, I couldn't let that slide. The door opened with a soft click. A waiter, wearing white gloves, entered respectfully and approached me, carefully holding a bottle of wine. "Boss," he said politely, "here's the Chateau Lafite Rothschild, vintage 1982, just as you requested." Chapter 6. The whole room went silent. Everyone exchanged confused looks. None of them had expected to drink such an expensive wine at what was supposed to be a casual class reunion. Just one bottle of this vintage was probably worth 10 meals here. Samuel's eyelid twitched, and he gave a sarcastic laugh. "Boss? Him? What kind of boss could he be?" Alice chimed in incredulously. "Yeah, didn't you just say he didn't even have a job? Since when did he become a boss?" Samuel, now convinced I was just putting on an act to show off, smirked and turned to the waiter. "Hey, you, the waiter, did he pay you to say that? I'll give you double whatever he offered. Just tell me the truth." The waiter glanced at him like he was looking at an idiot. He probably couldn't believe someone this clueless had ever gone to school with his employer. Still, the waiter replied politely. "Sir, this hotel does belong to our boss. In fact, he owns 11 hotels like this across the country. Our company pays well and treats its employees right. Even if you offered me double, I wouldn't switch jobs." Then, following my silent cue, he opened the bottle. The rich aroma instantly filled the room, far superior to the fancy foreign wine Samuel had brought earlier. The classmates began to stir, murmuring with admiration. Before long, they were all praising me. How impressive it was that I'd built everything myself without relying on my family. I accepted their compliments with a faint smile, but I didn't take them to heart. That's the way the world works. When you have money, everyone flatters you and circles around you. When you don't, some people can't wait to stomp you down. Samuel stared at the wine being poured into his glass. His eyes were redder than the wine itself. He downed the entire glass in one go, his face quickly flushing. Fueled by liquid courage, he started running his mouth again. "So what if you've got money, Kevin? You're still all alone, aren't you?" He pulled Alice close by the waist and sneered. "The woman you loved, she married me. Ha ha ha." I almost laughed out loud. What was there to brag about? She was just a toxic ex, not some kind of prize. I smirked, the disdain probably visible on my face. Samuel must have noticed, because he slammed his glass down on the table with a sharp clink. "I know you're showing off just to make me feel small. So what if you've got money? It's just a pile of cash, big deal." The more he talked, the more ridiculous he sounded, his words getting cheaper by the second. Maybe he was drunk, or maybe the years of failure had rotted something inside him. Samuel had never come from wealth. Back in college, he'd turned down every girl not because he was picky, but because he was calculating. He wanted someone rich, powerful, and useful for his future. That's why he chose Selena in the first place. Too bad she played him first. When she pretended to be terminally ill and said her fortune was gone, he dumped her immediately. Then he turned to Alice, his backup option. But Alice's family hadn't been doing well these past few years either. Several of their businesses had gone bankrupt. If not for my family still helping them out, mostly out of old ties, Alice probably wouldn't still be living so comfortably. Her public betrayal at our wedding had also humiliated her parents. They refused to acknowledge Samuel as a son-in-law, and even distanced themselves from Alice. She had a younger brother, and now all their attention and resources were devoted to him. No one cared much about their runaway daughter anymore. Just looking at Alice tonight, I could tell the dress she wore was 3 years out of style, and her jewelry was clearly last season's collection. For a woman who grew up pampered and proud, that said everything. They hadn't been doing well, not at all. Without money, how could she afford anything new? I swirled the wine in my glass lazily, watching the crimson liquid catch the light. "I have 2 kids now," I said casually. "Hardly sounds like a lonely man to me." Then I gave Samuel a thin smile. "But you'd better keep an eye on your precious woman. Don't let her go chasing after another married man." Chapter 7. That one sentence made Samuel's face darken instantly. He turned sharply toward Alice and demanded coldly, "You went to see him, didn't you?" Alice jumped to her feet, panic flashing in her eyes. "I just remembered something. I have to go." Clearly, she was guilty, but Samuel wasn't about to let her off that easily. He took a few quick steps, grabbed her wrist, and snapped. "I'm talking to you. Why are you dodging me?" He jabbed a finger in my direction. "You still have feelings for him, don't you?" Alice's face twisted through a dozen emotions before she suddenly snapped. "Yes, I do. I still can't forget him, and I regret everything. So what?" Her voice rose, trembling with anger and humiliation. She didn't care about saving face anymore, not his, not hers. "What else do you have besides a smooth tongue?" she shouted. "You're useless. It's been 3 years, how much money have you even made? All you do is play video games and watch girls dance online. You live off women every single day, and you still have the nerve to laugh at others. You disgust me." Samuel's face went pale, then red, then white again. Finally, he exploded. "Oh yeah, then why did you crawl into my bed when you were still dating him?" he roared. Alice's pupils contracted in shock. She lunged forward, trying to cover his mouth, but it was too late. The words were out. Nothing could undo them now. Both of them turned toward me at once, and just like that, the nausea hit me. So that loyal and pure, Alice had already cheated on me back then. All that talk about virtue, refusing even to let me hold her hand, while she was busy sleeping with another man. What a joke. This farce had turned into a spectacular implosion, both of them destroying each other in the process. Alice stormed out of the room, furious and humiliated, with Samuel chasing after her, shooting me a murderous glare as he left. When the door finally closed, the rest of the classmates just stared at one another, speechless. I exhaled slowly, picked up my glass, and smiled. "Well," I said lightly, "finally some peace and quiet. Let's drink." Chapter 8. After they left, the private room quickly returned to its lively chatter. I suddenly lost my appetite, so while everyone was still talking, I slipped out to have a smoke. To my surprise, Alice and Samuel were still outside, arguing on the sidewalk by the hotel. I didn't catch what she said, but Samuel suddenly raised his arm and slapped her hard across the face. My brow tensed and I instinctively took 2 steps forward, then forced myself to stop. She'd brought this on herself. I didn't want to get involved. I lowered my head and continued smoking, but quietly took out my phone, ready to call the police if things escalated and I needed to do the right thing. Then Alice saw me. She ran over and threw her arms around me. I startled and stepped back, nearly pushed over by her. "Kevin, I was wrong. Please forgive me." "Wah," she sobbed, snot and tears streaking down her face, and she dirted my t-shirt. That t-shirt was a limited edition my wife bought me while traveling abroad. I frowned at the damage. Alice mistook my concern for compassion and cried even harder. "Kevin, I missed you so much these 3 years. I miss our childhood together. It was my fault for being blind and falling for that trash Samuel. You saw it, he hit me." "Wah. Kevin, forgive me. Let's get back together. I'll do whatever you say." I held the cigarette high between my fingers, careful not to let her touch me. A waiter at the hotel entrance was craning his neck to watch. I glanced back, my heart pounding. Most of the staff here know me. If this got back to my wife, I'd better not expect to come home tonight. Panicked, I tried to push her away. "Wake up, I'm married, I've got 2 kids. But Alice clung to me like a piece of sticky rice cake. "I don't believe it." "Wah. You love me, I know you do." Samuel, fury in his eyes, lunged forward and kicked Alice hard. "Have you no shame?" he spat. Alice was sent stumbling, and in the process ripped one of the little decorations off my shirt. My brow tightened, which only fueled Samuel's rage. He swung at me, shouting, "Kevin, I've hated you for a long time." I tossed my cigarette away and grabbed his wrist. Same here. Old and new grudges combined. If I kept taking his abuse, I'd be a coward. I wound up and punched him square in the face. We traded blows and quickly became tangled in a scuffle. His fighting skills were amateurish compared to mine, so I had the upper hand, until a cold female voice rang out from nearby. "Stop it." Chapter 9. When I heard who had spoken, I immediately released his wrist, but Samuel landed a punch on my face, and blood spilled from the corner of my mouth. I sucked in a breath from the pain. Selena walked up in 10-centimeter heels, her steps clicking sharply. Seeing me take a blow, she didn't hesitate. She slapped Samuel hard across the face. Samuel, furious, was about to strike back, but when he looked at Selena's enraged face he froze in shock. "You're Selena. You didn't." His eyes widened in disbelief and he couldn't finish the sentence. Selena sneered. "Want to ask why I didn't die? Is that it?" She raised an eyebrow. "If I hadn't told you I was terminally ill back then, how would I have known whether your feelings for me were real or just for my money? You lied to me." Samuel's eyes filled with anger. "You actually lied to me." Selena folded her arms and sized him up mockingly. "I simply used his own trick against him. Didn't you do the same to me? You were with me for my family's money, weren't you?" Samuel went pale with fury and suddenly noticed me standing behind Selena. "So you married him?" he spat. Selena glanced at me, and I read a flash of danger and warning in her eyes. I immediately stood straight, my back prickling with cold sweat. No doubt about it, I truly am tightly controlled by my wife. Selena may be shorter than Samuel, but her presence dwarfed him. Being deceived by a jerk doesn't mean I have to pine away or shave my head and become a nun, does it? Look at that, no wonder she's my wife. Even her comebacks are on point. Samuel, hearing this, fumed until his eyes bulged. "You're shameless. Are you that desperate for a man?" Before he finished, I'd had enough. I kicked him hard in the chest. If the earlier fight was only small-scale retaliation, then now I was truly furious. Dare insult my wife and you're asking to die. I beat Samuel for a good 10 minutes straight. Far worse than before. He'd lost the strength to fight back. I pinned him to the ground and hammered him with punch after punch until he was wailing. Selena stood to the side with her arms folded, watching coldly. Only when police sirens sounded did I stop, step off him, and walk up to the officers. I pointed to the blood at the corner of my mouth and said plainly, "Officer, this man assaulted a woman in public, harassed my wife, and hit my face. This was self-defense. Please take him away." The police studied the bruise at my lip and the men on the ground who could barely get up, and fell into thought. Chapter 10. By the time we walked out of the police station, night had already fallen. To my surprise, during questioning, Alice's statement matched mine exactly. She didn't try to cover for Samuel. In fact, she told the officers that she had been a victim of domestic violence for a long time. Her body was covered in bruises. I couldn't help but sigh. She'd thrown away a good life just to be with a man like that. It was her own doing, not something worth pitying. Alice hurried a few steps to catch up behind me, speaking timidly, "Kevin, I want to talk to you." I was about to refuse when Selena turned to me with a cold glance. "Handle it cleanly." Then she walked to the car, opened the door, and got in. She was right. Rather than avoiding Alice endlessly, it was better to end things once and for all. "So you really married her?" Alice asked, her eyes red and wet. In the past, I probably would have softened, brushed her hair gently, and agreed to whatever she wanted, but not anymore. Now I understood. Her pity, her pleading, her fragility, her tears, they were all weapons she used to manipulate me. Once you know the trick, you stop falling for it. "Yes," I said calmly, one hand in my pocket. "You've seen it yourself. We have 2 lovely kids. Our marriage may have started by accident, but we're surprisingly in sync." I looked her straight in the eye, my tone steady but final. "Alice, in a way, I should thank you. If you hadn't abandoned me and run off with Samuel, I would never have met my wife, or been this happy." Alice's tears fell instantly. "But what if I still love you? What if I can't forget you?" She covered her face, sobbing helplessly. I raised an eyebrow, my tone calm, almost detached, even cruel. "That's only because your life hasn't gone well. If Samuel had truly loved you, given you wealth, stability, and emotional warmth, you wouldn't be thinking of me now." I turned my gaze toward the sleek black car parked nearby. Through the tinted glass, I could almost see Selena's cool yet gentle face. "Because I'm exactly the same," I said quietly. Alice's sobbing faltered for a moment, then grew even louder. I had no interest in listening to her remorse any longer. If I lingered, Selena might really lose her patience. "Enough. Take care of yourself," I said flatly. "Don't come looking for me again." Then I turned and walked toward the car, leaving Alice standing in the chilly night air, crying into the dark. Chapter 11. Once I got into the car, I leaned toward Selena with a fawning grin, ignoring the fact that our driver was right there. "Wife," I said softly, without hesitation. She kicked me in the shin. "Get away from me. You reek of that disgusting perfume." I raised my arm and sniffed helplessly. Well, that's what happens when you get smeared all over with a crying woman's tears and snot. What a waste of my limited edition t-shirt. I quickly pulled it off, rolled it into a ball, and stuffed it under my feet. Selena closed her eyes to rest, refusing to even look at me, feeling small, pitiful, and defeated. I shrank against the car door, not daring to provoke her further. But even with all my groveling, I was still locked out of the bedroom that night. As I trudged toward the study, pillow in hand, Daisy and Pilar peeked out from behind the bedroom door, whispering nosily, "Daddy, did you make Mommy mad again?" I forced a weak smile, trying to keep a shred of dignity. "No, Daddy just has work to do." The twins exchanged a look, then said in perfect unison, "Full of mischief. Daddy's lying. Bad boy." Then, with the sound of tiny slippers pattering against the floor, they ran off giggling. I sighed and lay down on the small bed in the study, hugging my pillow, wide awake and miserable. I don't know how much time passed before the door creaked open. In the silver glow of the moonlight, Selena entered, dressed in a white nightgown. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly sat up and greeted her eagerly. "Wife." She shot me a look, tossed a tube of ointment at me, and said curtly, "Apply the medicine." I knew it. She was all sharp tongue, soft heart. Seeing that she'd given me a chance to make amends, I caught her hand and said with a grin, "My hand hurts. Why don't you help me put it on?" Selena stared down at me, at my shameless, pleading expression, and finally gave an exasperated little laugh. "Let's see if you still dare to flirt around after this." "I'm innocent," I protested dramatically. She didn't bother arguing, just smeared the cold ointment directly on the cut at the corner of my mouth. Some of the bitter cream slipped into my mouth, making me wince and fall silent instantly. That night, between the quiet rustle of her tending my wounds and the unspoken glances we exchanged, The cold moonlight in the room slowly melted into something warm, tender, and full of love. Chapter 12. The last time I saw Alice was in the hospital. She was there for an abortion. She had finally broken up with Samuel, but before the breakup, she had accidentally gotten pregnant with his child. I saw her pale face as she leaned weakly against the wall and slowly sank onto a bench. My heart felt complicated. When she spotted me, she instinctively tried to avoid eye contact, but there was nowhere to hide. She forced a faint, fragile smile. What a coincidence. What are you doing here? I had one hand in my pocket and the other holding a thermos. My wife's about to give birth, I said evenly. I came to bring her some food. Her face turned even whiter. Neither of us spoke further. I raised an eyebrow slightly and walked past her. But just as I turned the corner, I heard a faint sob behind me. I sighed quietly. A moment later, an angry male voice shouted down the hall. Alice, you think you can do this to me? You dare abort my child? I turned back. Samuel had appeared, storming down the corridor. His face twisted with rage. He swung his briefcase and smashed it against Alice's head. She was already weak, and the blow knocked her to the ground instantly. The sharp corner of the case split her forehead open. Blood streamed down. Samuel didn't stop. So that's it, huh? You think I'm too poor now? You forget how you crawled into my bed back then. You shameless bitch. He kept beating her, one blow after another. Alice curled up on the floor, shielding her head with trembling arms. Her sobs grew weaker and weaker. Gone was the arrogant, headstrong girl who used to look down on everyone. What remained was a broken woman, pitiful and small, like a stray dog in the rain. So this was what it meant to lose both love and dignity. Utterly tragic. I put the thermos down and was just about to rush forward when 2 security guards came running and pulled Samuel off her. As he was dragged away, 2 nurses carefully lifted Alice up. Only then did I breathe out a little. But when I turned to leave, my eyes caught a dark red stain on the floor, a large pool of blood where Alice had fallen. That's when I realized she hadn't gone through with the abortion yet. Samuel's violence had killed his own unborn child. I steadied myself, picked up the thermos, and returned to Selena's ward. She was sitting on the bed, reviewing documents. I walked over, covered her eyes with my hand, and sighed. Still working? Don't you trust me to handle things? Selena smiled faintly. I just wanted to share some of your workload. You've already given me children. That's way harder than work, I said, placing the thermos on the nightstand and holding her hand gently. You said you like kids, so I let you have your way this time. But this is it. 3's enough. No more after this. Selena leaned into my arms and nodded softly. Okay. I told her what had happened with Alice. She sighed and said that Alice had probably been torn about whether to keep the baby. Even if she hated Samuel, the child carried her blood. She might not have had the heart to end it. But now it was too late. Forget it, I murmured, brushing the thought aside. No need to ruin our mood. I let go of my wife, picked up the dictionary from the table, and smiled. Come on, let's think of a name for our 3rd son.